This message comes from NPR sponsor Autograph Collection, part of Marriott Bonvoy. Each of the almost 300 independent hotels in the Autograph Collection are designed to be exactly like nothing else. Visit autographcollection.com to find something unforgettable.
Rodney.
Yes, sir. What's going on, man?
How you doing?
How you doing? Good.
Cannot complain.
I hear you. I hear you brought your flute today.
Yeah, I kind of always have it with me.
No doubt.
Like a good time saver.
Yeah. I hear you.
André 3000 has arrived, and the man is come bearing gifts, y'all. The enigmatic half of Outkast is dropping his first album of new music in nearly 2 decades. And even from an artist known for defying expectation, man, this one right here, it sounds totally out the blue. New Blue Sun is the title, and it's the first album of his career that comes with this kind of advisory sticker. Warning, no bars. In other words, this ain't a rap album. It's André's instrumental debut. He made it in collaboration with some heavy experimental jazz cats in L.A. like Carlos Nino, Sarai Bodafasana, and Nate Mercero. Now, the album drops this Friday, November 17th. So the reason you won't hear any of the music in this interview is because he wants to make sure people can hear it as a whole, uninterrupted, once it's out. But I've heard it, and I love where he's taking us. So I couldn't wait to talk to him about it. Now, even though he's a man of few words on the mic nowadays, he had plenty to say about what inspired this new direction, about the hands-up roller coaster ride that brought him here, and about the ageless, boundless way he's learned to speak through his instrument. And let it be known after this conversation that one of the biggest talents of our generation still has a lot more to give. He even talked about performing live again. Now, André talked to me from NPR's Culver City studios in L.A. while I was at home in Atlanta. And as we were getting ready to start the interview, I could hear him in my headphones doing something he likes to do when he's just killing time. He started playing the flute.
Oh, man, you got it sounding nice over there.
Good time saver, you know.
It's so warm, man. It's like...
Oh, man, thank you. Yeah, so I just keep it so... you know how you check your phone all the time, you kind of just have it in your hand, and you look at your phone. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing. You just you pick it up and just see what's happening.
Well, first off, man, let me say thank you for the new music. I've been meditating to your album. I've been taking long walks, breathing it in, letting it marinate and unfold. You know, it's been 20 years since we got a new André 3000 album.
Yeah, man. Yes. Yeah, man, I'm glad that you've been dealing with the album in that way and letting it, be a part of your life in that way.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's been a minute since I put out a proper album. Like the last time was... I guess Speakerbox Love. Well, no, Idlewild, Speakerbox Love Below, somewhere around in there.
Yeah.
But I'm just really, man, just happy to share it more than anything,
True that, and that's right. I forgot Idlewild, so it's not quite 20 years.
Almost. It was right around.
Yeah.
There.
But this album, it definitely feels like an evolution that's about that long in the making, or, in some ways, maybe it's a brand new awakening. I'm curious how you see it.
Yes, I mean, for me, it's just another iteration of what I've always been doing. Like I haven't really changed my formula at all. It's just kind of this is further out. Like I've always kind of just been, exploring what I can do and just kind of riding the ride. When me and Big Boy got together, we didn't really know where we were going. We had human intentions. We knew we wanted to rap.
Yeah.
And I never knew that rapping would even take me to producing, and producing would take me to playing instruments, and instruments would get me here.
Mm-hmm.
So I just been on the ride, and people been on the ride with us and with me.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see this as just just the further down the road. I mean, even when you look at, like, someone pointed out to me the other day, like the Love Below, like there was a certain point, like, I mean, when you look at My Favorite Things, like that just instrumental song in the middle of the album, like that's it's just because I love Coltrane in that way. So I've always been inspired by people that can express themselves without words, and so I've always been interested in that kind of approach. And I mean, even on the Love Below, I mean, it's horrible, but I've always just kind of been into wind instruments. So I mean, I played a little saxophone on the Love Below, and then got into bass clarinet and that kind of thing. So I've always kind of just been something about them winds, and even more particular, something about human wind and wood. Like I started with saxophone because Coltrane, to be completely honest, and then me researching Coltrane, to learn that he started playing clarinet first.
Right.
In school. And so I was like, well, okay, I need to go and try clarinet. And this is me taking, like, no lessons. This is kind of the rap hip hop version of it. Like, we good for just picking up something and trying to figure out how it works, or making, a different way. So I was always like, I had an armature. As soon as I grabbed it, I was always able to make a sound, like a pretty cool tone. But I never took lessons, so I'm a horrible student. So I never learned to play any of them really well, but I've always just been interested in it. So for me, this is just like further down the road, to answer your question.
Well, yeah, I definitely want to get into some heavy flute talk.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm also curious, like, there's been obviously a lot of pressure from fans for you to release a new album for years now. I'm sure you felt it, but from what I've heard you say in past interviews, it seems like maybe the greatest pressure you probably felt was the pressure you were putting on yourself at times.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always been that way. It's like I'm saying, it's not anything new. It's like, even in our height of what people know of what I've done before, like, I was always like a slow writer. I'm not a freestyler. Like, I don't be freestyling, and I wasn't blessed with that. I'm a writer, and not necessarily a pen and pad writer, but I construct and architect verses in a way, like, that's what I've been doing, all my life. Yeah. So, I look at it in that way, and if I'm not satisfied with what it is, I mean, I just don't put it out. So, even during, the earlier times, Big Boy, he just kind of go in there and, like, really, like, he's so fast and, like, efficient with what he does. He'll come in there and just throw verses down so fast, and it'll take me a minute to throw them down. So it's like I've always kind of been analyzing it or figuring out how I wanted to approach it. And so, in these times, it's just, it just comes harder for me to do it. And I don't know why. I mean, I try it all the time. It's not like I don't, try, or it's not like I have, a lot of these songs just sitting. I have songs, but it's not like rap things that I really feel happy about sharing. And really, that's like the most important part. Like, I have to feel happy about sharing it. And that's why New Blue Sun was something that I realized, whoa, I really want people to hear it. I really want to share it. Like, before, that's kind of like my only gauge. I have to like it as a person, as an artist myself. Yeah. Because if I don't like it, I can't expect nobody else to like it. I can't pretend in that way. So that's always been hard for me. Yeah. So, once we started recording New Blue Sun, I think like 3 songs in, I was like, oh, we got something. Like, I got something. I remember, like, I had like maybe 4 songs, and I was just kind of testing out because I wanted to see what a younger audience too, how they would perceive it. And, I reached out to Tyler, and I live in Cali now, so I reached out to Tyler for him to check it out. And, I went to his house, and
Tyler, the creator.
Yeah. So we're sitting there, and Frank just happened to show up, like just happened to drop by. So it's us 3 sitting there listening to, these 3 songs, and I just kind of wanted to get an opinion. And it was just good for me to hear what somebody, because sometimes you can be in your own thing and think it's a certain thing. And you just want to have, some outside. Not that it really matters, because once you believe in it enough, I mean, if I take criticism all the time, but it's not like, hey, do you like it or not? It's how can we help it? Or, you know what I mean? So at that point, I felt like we had something, because, we had a nice day just enjoying it in a way. And I started just doing that. Like, I started just playing it for friends and playing it for artists and playing it for people I respect, or people who I felt would get it,
And what kind of feedback were they giving you?
Oh, that it was like, I think Tyler said he was staring at this thing that he has in his house, and he was like, man, I've been trying to figure out how to stack these things. Like, he's a fan of travel suitcases, and so he has a wall of like travel suitcases, and he was like, man, I've been trying to figure out how to configure these like Louis suitcases or something on his wall. And he was listening to one of the songs, and he was like, it sounds like you're chasing a butterfly through a garden, and I figured it out. Like, it helped me to figure out how to do this. I was like, and I think Frank pointed out one of his favorite tracks out of the 3. And I was just happy to hear that, because I respect them as musicians, and like New Energy, like they're like going for it, man. So it's like, I really respect their opinions in a way. So I was just so happy to play it, and I play it for like my homies. I play it for friends, play it for artists, directors, just to see their reaction more than anything. So I was just happy with what I was getting.
Well, you already mentioned the album title, New Blue Sun. It's almost an hour and a half in length. It's 8 songs that feel orchestral and tribal and contemplative and transcendent all at the same time. It feels like you're taking us to other realms, man, or at least like definitely other realms of André.
Yeah, it took me to other realms, to be completely honest. Like, I've been playing flute for years. Like, it got to a point where it was kind of like kind of Instagram worthy, where people were kind of just like sneaking and filming me play.
No doubt.
In space, like in the public, like just out. Like, I might be at Starbucks getting a coffee. I'm waiting on my coffee. I might just start playing somewhere, like go outside and play. And then people would just film me and then post it. And that started to happen a lot. And then like one person actually came up to me on the street, and he was like, man, it's a thing. Like, it's a game almost. Like, we're trying to find you and trying to film you play this flute. And that like, kind of was sucky, because it was kind of like a Where's Waldo kind of thing.
Where's Waldo,
like a game.
Exactly.
And I didn't like that, because, I mean, they just kept getting little nicks of me just kind of messing around, And so I just felt like I'd like to share it on a wide scale. Like, I'd really like to play, but it was really for me. Like, I would just walk for hours, and I'm a walker. I love to walk, so I would just walk and play for hours, and like I did that for years.
But the thing to me that's interesting about those sightings is they started happening at a time where we weren't seeing or hearing much from you, and when we would see you, you would look happy, you would look at peace. You were playing this flute, and it was reassuring. You know what I'm saying? Like, that whatever was going on with you, you seemed like you were in a good place. And with artists that I think we care about, when we're not hearing output from them, that's always a question. You know what I'm saying? Are they in a good place? It almost seemed like it was like a spiritual practice for you, like a form of meditation. I don't know. Maybe that's deeper or more like esoteric than it really is for you. But I mean, you always seem like you in a good place. Like, is that kind of what it does for you, or?
I'm happy. I'm happy when I'm playing. I'm exploring when I'm playing. I'm thinking when I'm playing. I wouldn't say that it's a set out meditation, but I do think you get into a meditative practice for, staying in the moment and doing a repetition of something. A lot of times when I'm playing, like actually every time when I'm playing, I'm making it up as I'm going along. So I have to force myself to pay attention to what I'm doing. Like, I'm not, well, sometimes I may find a pattern that I like or a melody that I like that I kind of go back to, but for the most, like responding to what's happening. So yeah, I'm very happy when I'm playing. I'm very in the moment when I'm playing. And it's funny you say that, because like if I was on the corner and somebody said, "Oh man, that's André 3000, man, rap," it would feel so weird for me to just start rapping.
Yeah.
But if somebody say, "Hey, play," what does that sound like? I'm so gung ho to play. Like I love to play it. Like it's so. Yeah, I don't know. It's a completely different. Maybe because it's completely free, and maybe a freestyle rapper. Like I love when rappers can freestyle. Maybe they feel that feeling too when someone asks them to rap. You know, but for me, it's that's like if someone asks you to build a house right here on the spot. You know what I mean? It's like, or design this house right here on the spot. That may be fun for some people, but it's actually work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so going into New Blue Sun, it was kind of like trying to figure out, well, how do I share it? And I had all these ideas and all these influences of how I wanted it to sound. And I know now that, you know, the path that my living path, like I moved from New York, I moved to California and Venice Beach in particular. And so Venice Beach is it's on the west side of LA. And everybody knows Venice Beach is a different kind of LA. And it's walkable, you know, it's neighborhoody. It's a little sketchy at times, but I think moving to Venice definitely helped introduce me to people I would be playing with. Like, I actually met Carlos Nino in Air One. And everybody know we call it Club Air One because it's so kind of like a fashionable place to be. And so I'm in Air One, and Carlos, we meet, and he was like, you know, everybody in town has been telling me that you were in town playing flute, and they were telling me that we should meet. And so that day that me and Carlos met, he invited me to an event that he was throwing, this Alice Coltrane like tribute event. And I brought my flute. You know, it was kind of like a few hours after we met. And he was like, hey, man, we should hook up. And we actually just hooked up, and I would, you know, go to his house, go to his basement, and we'd just be playing. And so when I started to say, hey, I really want to make an effort to make this album, his instinct and his pool of people, like his Carlos Nino and friends, like he said, I could bring people, you know, I know players that could help. And we sat around, we tried a few different configurations to figure out like what works best for me. And in producing the album, we kind of nailed it down, and we experimented, and we found a sound, and it ended up being the core four of us, me, you know, on winds, different woodwind instruments and digital flutes, Carlos Nino on percussions, Nate Mercereau on guitar, and he hardly ever sounds like he's playing guitar, but he's an awesome guitarist. He's kind of like a magician in a way. And then Soraya Budafasana, he's a keyboardist. Right. And that's kind of like the core four, but I had to say, like, I think me moving to, like, I would have never met the people that were really important to what I'm doing now if I wouldn't have moved to Venice. And it was happenstance how I moved to Venice. So, but the way we recorded, and I think it's important to know when I say it transcended me, it took me to different places to play. Like, we don't sit around and say, okay, well, we're going to play these chords, because I don't know chords. I don't know keys. I don't know notes. I've always produced in that way, just kind of doing it. And so in this situation, we have the engineer set up, and we just press record and find ourselves and listen to each other. So everything you're hearing on New Blue Sun was spontaneous, like, compositions. We made it up on the spot. And so even in our live shows, you'll see us do it in that way. So everything you hear is how we heard it. So you got to think when you're listening to it, and I'm responding, I'm learning the melodies as I'm going along. So everything is kind of in the moment. So if you feel transcended, we were transcended at the same time, because we're on the ride with y'all. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned, I want to back up for a second, because you mentioned Carlos Nino, who you produced the album with. He's a heavy hitter and kind of almost feels like a spiritual guru of sorts in the LA kind of alt jazz world, you know. I don't know how you take
laugh
that,
at the guru kind of thing. He's like, I'm not no guru, you know. But I understand what you mean, man. He's a great connector, man. Great person, great musician. So I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, he's worked with everybody from Miguel Atwood Ferguson to Madlib, and I know you played flute on his most recent Carlos Nino and Friends album on a song called Conversations. And a lot of the way you talking about this community of artists that you got linked up with, it kind of makes me think about your beginnings with The Dungeon.
Man, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because even like the last song on the album, it mentions The Dungeon, and that's on purpose, because in the same way, like now, like when you talk about Carlos Nino and Nate Mercereau and Soraya, like Buddha Fasana, like in this whole community of players, like it gives you an opportunity and a support system to be as free as you can be. And like you need to feel comfortable in a situation to be like really free, and that's why I really champion like crews, like even rap crews. Like it's important for your crew to be supportive of you, because you can be the best you can be. And like I wouldn't be able to play flute or any of this stuff. I wouldn't have been like producing any of this if it wasn't for The Dungeon. So The Dungeon was the dirt. That's the ground that we planted everything in, and it. Like all of those members in the Dungeon family, Goody Mob, Organizer Noise, Big Boy, everybody like created an environment for me to be able to like to just go. you know, like you need that. If you don't feel comfortable in the situation, you won't be as free as you can be.
Yeah. Well, you've talked a lot about in recent years about having social anxiety disorder, and about how the need for isolation kind of compounded it even further, which, I mean, first off, I want to say is like so refreshing to me that we as Black men especially are starting to be, just more transparent with each other about mental health and stuff like that. But the fact that this album wasn't made in isolation and was a very collaborative process, I mean, can you talk more about how that gave you that sense of freedom and kind of helped you kind of get unstuck a little bit?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I was talking, like the environment was really important, and like we're listening to each other, we're responding to each other, we're supporting each other at certain times, and that's the sound. So it's kind of mirroring real life. That's why I say when I describe it, which is hard to really describe, is a full, living, breathing album, because it's fully alive. Like this ain't like we didn't sketch it out. Like we didn't like do a sketch first, or we didn't.
Okay.
So it's really, really breathing. So like you're along the ride, and those people around, it's a support system in that way. And as far as like anxiety and that kind of thing, yes, I have been diagnosed with that, but I kind of realized that like life is life, man. Like, and it's kind of like our grandparents, they didn't have these terms to describe these things. They didn't have these diagnoses to describe these things. So they may have been going through similar thing, but they just had to live through it. And it's like, I mean, that's what it is. Like life is life, and life will come at you at different ways. And it's for you to pay attention to what's happening. And, so I'm not like, I don't feel worse or better than anybody else. I feel like what comes to you is for you. So, I just use it as an instrument, just like it used me. So, yeah, like I wouldn't be here, like if it wasn't for, these, what they call ailments and all this kind of stuff, man. Like, I don't want to lean on that. And I think a lot of times we're starting, because now we have a name for it. We're starting to lean on these names and kind of like really dig into these names, and really just try to just figure yourself out, And I'm not sure if sometimes I think you may give yourself a disservice once you start calling the boogeyman, like then you start looking for it. So it's like just live and take it day by day, man. Like everything won't be great. The only thing I can say, man, is like learn how to ride the roller coaster, because it's gonna be I don't care who you are, it's gonna be a roller coaster. So my thing is just the best thing you can do is learn how to ride the roller coaster with your hands up. That's it. That's it.
Dope. Well, to a lot of people, this might feel like a bit of a musical diversion, because it's not a rap album. There's no rapping on the album at all, but I think that one thing that any true Andre 3000 fan has hopefully learned over the years is to always expect the unexpected. So in some ways, I don't know, I feel like you've been preparing us for a new direction for decades, but I'm wondering, especially what you're talking about, I'm wondering what kind of work did it take for you to prepare yourself, like even before you got with the tribe and the community and clique that you made this album with? Like, what was that process like for you in terms of getting to this point?
Living. It's not even like a magical thing. Like, my training was living. Like, you know, my direction was living. And what I mean by that is, like, you say I've been kind of like preparing you for like and always be expecting the unexpected. For me, that's kind of like what's been given to me. Like, I never knew, like when I was a kid, like I draw and paint. Like I knew I was going to go to art school. My mom thought I was going to go to art school. I was supposed to go to Savannah College of Art and Design in Atlanta. And that just didn't happen. I discovered rap. And, you know, like I didn't know I'd be rapping. I didn't know I'd start producing. I didn't know I'd start singing. I didn't know my style would go a certain way. I didn't know I'd put a wig on. Like, I didn't know none of this. So I'm on the ride with y'all. So I'm expecting anything just like y'all. So I didn't know I'd be playing the flute. I laugh at it because, like, my homies in Atlanta, like, we'll talk, and he was like, man, you know, niggas think you crazy walk around with this flute. And like I'm always in on the joke, so don't ever think that I don't know how people think or look at me in a certain way. Yeah. Like, I understand. Like, if I was on the outside, I would feel the same way. So for me, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but that's the cool and scary thing about it. And I think as an artist, you kind of gotta put yourself out there to be prepared to respond. Like, I'm a responding person. That's what I am. I'm responding to what's given to me. So whatever you see, it's just me responding to what's happening in front of me. It's responding to my contemporaries. It's responding to, you know, what I love. It's responding to what I don't like. It's responding to all of that. And I think as an artist, you kind of got to have like really strong antennas.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. And so where I am now, it's where I'm supposed to be. I couldn't plan it. And here's the cool thing. Like, yes, we can plan it. Like, our limited human brains can plan it, but it's always like greater and more magical when you're surprised by these things. I bet you, like, I do hear a lot of artists say, like, yeah, I always knew I was going to be doing this. Yeah, you knew, but you didn't know you were going to be doing this or doing it this way. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen artists transcend themselves, and it's like, I get emotional about it. Like, when I see rappers go to a certain level, I'm sure they didn't know, because I didn't know. So I know they ain't know. But that's the magic. So y'all just looking at the magic show, and it's nothing special. I'm not special. Everybody has a certain kind of magic show. You watching it, like, you didn't know what you would be doing.
Well, let's get into this album, man, because I want to make sure we spend some time talking about it. And, well, first, the album title, New Blue Sun. Is there a double meaning there? Because it feels like there's a double meaning at play behind that.
Double, maybe triple. I can explain it. Like, New Blue Sun, for me, it means like right now, like, if you look up in the sky, like the sun that we've been living under for like ages, even the Egyptian times, it's the same sun. And it's this kind of whitish, light, brightish kind of yellow. Like, when people draw it or paint it, it's usually this whitish or yellowish kind of sun. And unfortunately, that sun is going to burn out. Like, it's at some point, that sun will die, just like all stars. And New Blue Sun for me was like, in a sci-fi way, like the next world or the next beings will be under a bluer, cooler burning sun. And so it will burn cooler, but it will be larger. So when you look up in the sky in these times, there'll be this like larger globe of bluish, still bright, but bluish because it's cooler sun. And for me, it's kind of like this whole album and this whole direction is a new world for me. So it's that kind of, it's that world. New Blue Sun is like a new direction.
So let's get to the song titles, because you got some real clever wordplay going on with these song titles. I mean, they feel like part confessional, it's ironic, it's mind-altering, and all like super humorous, but also really lyrical and like literary, you know, and long.
Yeah, they were long. They were long on purpose because I knew, okay, if this album has no lyrics, that I would try to give as much, thought or information in the titles. And I kind of been going through a phase where I love these like really long titles, and it's just kind of like a taste choice more than anything. So I was trying to like find fun, and and also like I think this world that when people think of flutes and they think of cymbals and chimes or meditation or this kind of ethereal kind of sound, they forget that we're human too. So I was like, I guess the rapper in me, like I'm trying to humanize it or punkatize it or like make it less precious. Like it is precious, but at the same time we're human, so we laugh, like and so I was trying to really like inject some type of I guess just humanness, because I'm a full-rounded person. Like I'm a Gemini, so it's like, you may think it's one side, but I got this whole other like devilish kind of side too, like demonish side, and I think every human has it in them, and you pick choices to be what you're going to be and do what you do. But I was trying to just show some balance in it, so it's not all incense burning and
right.
You know what I mean? That's just not me every day,
No doubt.
A lot of these songs, we were kind of like in the studio, we would quickly title them just to have a place marker. Okay. And so they may be, they may be something like just something that we can remember it by. Yeah. And I went back to title them after we recorded them. So, okay. Yeah. So,
I would really love if you could read some of them for us, starting with the first song title, because I think it really addresses the elephant in the room right off top.
For sure. So the first song, the title is, I Swear I Really Wanted to Make a Rap Album, but this is literally the way the wind blew me this time. And so for me, like I already knew how people would be looking at it, and I didn't want to troll people. I didn't want people to think, oh, this André 3000 album is coming, and you play it and like, oh man, no verses. So even actually on the packaging, you'll see it. It says, warning, no bars. So it's kind of like it's letting you know what it is off the top. Mm-hmm. But also like, this is true, man. Like I really like, you understand, like, I love rap music because it was a part of my youth. So I would love to be out here rapping with everybody rapping, because it's almost like fun to being on the playground playing. Like I would love to be out here playing with everybody, but it's like, it's just not happening for me. So this is the realest thing that's coming right now. Not to say that I would never do it again, but those are not the things that are coming right now. And I have to present what's given to me, at the time. So the title, I really wanted to make a rap album, but this is literally the way the wind blew me this time, because this album is about wind and breathing. And so, in that way, it is true. It is literally blowing me this way, and I'm blowing flutes and I'm blowing digital instruments, and I'm, that's what the first title was about.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but I also imagine that the legacy of Outkast, like as great as it is, has maybe in some ways also kind of like weighed you down at times, or blanketed your creativity at times.
Nah. It catapulted me, man. Like Outkast was just an incubator to explore, man. Like I'm saying, like I couldn't have done a lot of the things if Big Boy didn't support it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if I was on my own, it may have been, been taken a different way. You know what I mean? So, Outkast was definitely an incubator for me, man. Like, yeah.
But I mean, even not like 20 years out almost, like even after post Outkast, did it still feel like a catapult, or did it ever feel like something you had to live up to in terms of whatever you were going to do next?
No, well, on the outside, like if I'm a fan, I do understand how like you would want it to be lived up to what was before. So in that way, it's kind of sucky that people, kind of judge you for what was before. But I mean, that's life, and Outkast was a part of my life. And of course, there's certain standards that we set. So we've kind of created certain standards that people's ears, have kind of gotten accustomed to. So in that way, I mean, people are going to expect a thing, but I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. It's kind of like a good thing in a way, because it, you hope to create an art piece that people enjoy, and they've enjoyed it for years, so they kind of want to hold you to that. So I understand it, you know.
Yeah. Well, the other interesting thing I think is, you know, when you talk about not necessarily being there with rap right now, I think a lot of fans immediately think of all these fire guest verses that you've been dropping on other people's projects for like, I don't know, more than a decade now. A lot of times it feels like a verse from you is more anticipated than half of the people's projects that you're appearing on. But it makes me curious, like when you talk about your relationship with rap, is it the art form itself or the current state of rap that you feel most disconnected from?
No, it's all of it. Like where the world is kind of dictates how you come. So all of it is a factor. And so, I get beats from producers, like even like current producers now all the time. And I still produce myself, but I've been trying to find a way I just hadn't found anything that's pleasing enough to me to want to present, you know, and not from any of the producers or anything, because I be loving when I hear somebody else do it, but it's kind of like I don't know how to rock on that really, you know, in a way that I feel great about it. So, if I can't find a way to rock on it, it's, I kind of leave it there.
Is that what's made like instrumental music? You said it feels more rebellious to you. Like, talk about your passion for instrumental music, like how it started and how you got off into that bag so more so.
Well, it's really funny. Like as a youngster, I associated jazz music with old people.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just being honest. Like as a rapper, I associated jazz music with old people and elevator music, like because it had become that. And here's what's hilarious too, like every generation will do that. So what's funny is at some point in the future, people want to listen to trap music and be like, oh, that's nice. No, I'm being honest, because it happens because society moves forward, and it always does. But I remember when I was like about 20, and I got into actually music and producing and like really understand. And I always like some songs, and I'm like, whoa, okay, like. The pop songs that I got into, like some of the Take 5, or the Chuck Mangione. Like I remember that, playing on the radio as a kid and like humming the melodies, and I was like, oh, okay, so I'm getting affected by, these instrumental cats. And so once I started really getting into it, I'm like, hold up, like jazz was the rap of that time. Like these dudes, they were smoking, they were doing heroin, they were in clubs, they were like like trading, like what we trade verses, they trading like solos, and like you really get into it and you really understand what they were doing and how rebellious what they were doing. You were like, man, this is the ultimate.
Wow. And
so like you got to think like classical music was before, like so these cats took classical instruments. And pared it down to a smaller kind of situation. There was big band jazz before, but what I got grabbed by was what came later than the big band jazz. But they were taking classical instruments and finding a new way to do it that classical guys were probably looking like, what the fuck? And they just invented a whole new music. And you have to understand that. So maybe the context of what they were doing is as important as what they were doing, too. And they studied all the real jazz cats. They studied the classical cats. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah. And
they found a way to throw it back at them in a certain way. So once I discovered it and got deep into it, and you loving Eric Dolphy and Coltrane and Yusef Lateef and Pharoah Sanders, like these are some of my favorites. And as a child, like I'm like, whoa, they can actually say something or make me feel something without saying something. And it's so universal too, because you don't have to be American, you don't have to be Japanese, you don't have to be from South America, but it affects everybody because they're tones. Yeah. It's just sounds and tones that it can be translated in any way. And that was like really, really attractive to me. So I always looked up to those cats more than anybody. Yeah. And so like I've always kind of like messed around with instruments, and I was trying to figure out like how can I do it in my own way. And so when I got to this point, it was just fun, and I just felt like if someone is transported or they're feeling a thing or feeling a way, you know, I'm sharing something in a different way. And I know from like watching my heroes grow older that your rhythm is kind of, it ages you in a certain way, and your vocals age you in a certain way. So I was always trying to figure out a way that I can continue. Like, you can continue rapping for the rest of your life till you're 90 years old, but I've always tried to find a way that was ageless. And when you're listening to a player, a lot of times, like an instrumental player, you may not know their age. And I kind of love that in a way. And not that there's anything wrong with age, and I think we have a thing where we kind of run away from age. Like, I love that I'm 48 now. Like, if I could go back to being 21, I would not. And that's just the truth. Like, sometimes I look in the mirror, I'm like, man, you have silver hair. And I'm like, that's so awesome. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm a silverback gorilla.
Yeah.
And you have to earn that. You have to really earn it. But I've had silver hair since I was 17, to be honest. But now it's more prominent.
And my conversation with André 3000 about his new album, New Blue Sun, will continue right after this short break.
This message comes from NPR sponsor FX's Fargo. The thrilling new chapter stars Juno Temple, John Hamm, and Jennifer Jason Leigh. The Emmy Award-winning series from creator Noah Hawley has been called one of the most consistently great shows of the past decade. FX's Fargo premieres November 21st on FX. Stream on Hulu. Support for NPR comes from FX, presenting A Murder at the End of the World, starring Emma Corrin, Clive Owen, and Britt Marling. Emma plays Darby Hart, a sleuth and tech-savvy hacker. She joins an exclusive group invited to a retreat. When one of the guests is found dead, Darby must prove it was murder before the killer takes another life. FX's A Murder at the End of the World, now streaming only on Hulu. Support for this podcast and the following message come from Amazon Business. Amazon Business knows your business needs a lot. From markers to monitors, desk chairs to standing desks, you could spend all day tracking down products from an endless list of suppliers. With Amazon Business, you can streamline purchasing to make the most of business spend and your time. Access millions of supplies in a single store with quantity discounts on bulk orders, turning your to-do list into your all-done list. Everything you need in one place. That's smart business buying. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com.
30 years ago, a group of young punks in Olympia, Washington started Riot Girl, a movement that changed music and culture forever. I'm Fabi Reina, founder of She Shreds Media, and this is Starting a Riot. Come with me as I dig into the history of Riot Girl, what it is and what it isn't. Listen to Starting a Riot from OPB, part of the NPR network.
I'm Rodney Carmichael from NPR Music, and I'm talking with André 3000 about his surprising new instrumental album, New Blue Sun.
So the first song that I named the title, I swear I really wanted to make a rap album. So the actual studio working title for that was called Beyond the Pharaohs. That was the first title of it. And why we called it Beyond the Pharaohs was because we were so excited, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait till Pharoah Sanders hear this. I wonder what he would think. And so we called it Beyond the Pharaohs as a nod. And unfortunately, he passed away before, he could hear it.
Well, let me ask you this, because you were talking about your heroes being able to say stuff with the music. Like, do you find that you're able to say things through the music that you can't with words?
Yes. Now that, people are finally hearing it, journalists are finally hearing it, everybody has their own translation. And that's kind of cool because it's for you. It's your thing. You can have your own thoughts with it. I have my own thoughts. And one cool thing about flute or any kind of instrumental music, but for me is the focus is flute and wind instruments for me. Like whatever mood I'm in, if I'm playing, I can be saying anything. I can be saying, I hate that pussy nigga. I can be saying that with my flute. Or I can be saying, oh, you're really attractive. Like I can be saying those things in my mind and translating them in my way. And, it's for me. Like it's funny, like some things like in society you can't say out loud, especially now, everybody's kind of like really sensitive about things, but you can say them with an instrument. It's kind of cool. It's kind of like a sub talk in a way.
Well, that's like a perfect segue into track 2, which if you don't mind reading that title.
The title for number 2 is called "The Slang Word Pussy Rolls Off the Tongue with Far Better Ease Than the Proper Word Vagina. Do you agree?" And so the name of that was originally called All Occasions. And it's because when we finished it, we were like, man, like you can play this in any situation. And one of them, of course, was like when you with your lady or with whatever you with these days. But that was like All Occasions was like if you're in a sexual situation too, this song could work. And so when I went to title it, I was trying to make a nod to it, but still be kind of like fun with it. So so that was how that title came about.
Well, yeah, I'm curious, like how much the titles like reflect the intention or the inspiration that you have behind the actual music.
Yeah, I mean, it's up for interpretation, and just to put a place marker on it, like,
yeah,
I just thought it'd just be. Sometimes I go for what's more interesting. Like, boring is boring, you know. Sometimes it's the more interesting choice is where it's at.
Well, let's get into some flute talk, man. We started talking flutes at the beginning a little bit. Like you said, you play a digital wind instrument on this song and several other songs. How many flutes do you own?
Maybe about 30, 40 flutes.
Wow. Okay, I did not expect that.
Yeah, but I have to say, like, it's because like I started with one style of flute. The style of flute that I started with was introduced to me by Cassia. Cassia, she's a world-class surfer, and she was playing this flute at this breathwork class, and as soon as she started playing, my ears popped up. I'm like, what is that sound? And I had to go up to her and ask her, like what is that? And so she introduced me to my flute master, the guy that makes my flute, Guillermo Martinez. And that style of flute that he makes was my intro into flutes. And so, like, I was living in New York at a point, and so when I get into an Uber or get into a taxi, I always play. And so what started to happen, like, depending on the taxi driver, like, whatever nationality they were, like, if they were Chinese or if they were African or East Indian, a driver, they would always turn around and be like, oh, that reminds me of my country. And even though I'm playing one flute, it always reminded them of their country. And so at that point, they would start to have a conversation with me, like, oh, man, have you ever heard of the Bansuri flute, which is an Indian flute? Or, oh, have you heard of the Ney flute, you know, which is Egyptian or Turkish flute? And so I'm kind of getting schooled by different cultures on different flutes. So when I say I have a lot of flutes, I have mostly my style of flutes made by Guillermo, but I started to just collect a lot of different flutes from a lot of different countries. So I have flutes from Thailand, I have flutes from China, I have flutes from Korea, flutes from Africa. So it's like just being excited about, you know, wind and flutes, you know, and every culture has a flute. The flute is the first instrument ever after the drum. The drum came first. And then flute. So flute is the first instrument where we actually heard a musical tone or a note, you know. So it's always interesting to me about flutes in that way. And one thing I like about flutes and wooden flutes in particular is it's the closest to the human voice out of all the instruments. And I think that's why I kind of gravitated towards it, because when you're hearing a flute player or a saxophonist, like, you're actually hearing the wind of that human. You hear it more in wood, because I think sometimes the metal may color it more, but it's something about the wood and the human voice. Yeah, it's closest to the human voice.
Let's jump to track 3. If you can say the title for that one, that'd be good.
Okay, so track 3 is titled "That Night in Hawaii When I Turned Into a Panther and Started Making These Low Register Purring Tones That I Couldn't Control. Shit was wild."
Nah, I ain't gonna lie, man. This sounds like a straight up ayahuasca trip or
that
something like that.
That is exactly what I was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta tell me the story behind this night, man.
Yeah, I was actually in Hawaii, and it was my second night of the first time I'd ever taken ayahuasca, and we did like a 3-night kind of phase. But the first night was inviting and beautiful, and like the most powerful love and connection with all things I've ever felt in my life. The second night was different, and everybody knows that Aya will do you that way. Yeah. So the second night, my stomach was hurting. my mouth contorted like a panther, and I actually turned into a panther, and I was doing like that kind of thing. And I actually turned into a panther, and it was doing this thing called toning. Toning is another way of purging, and toning is where you make these vibrational noises that you can't control, and it started playing me like an instrument. And so I started as a panther, and then it would make me do these long kind of tones and started changing the notes. So and I can only mimic it. So on the album, I'm mimicking. But the funny thing was in the IS session, I was like, damn, I wish I had my phone so I can record this, because like it'd be so dope. But so on the album, kind of mimicking the sound, but it kind of sounds something like this. So it started playing me in a way that goes like. And it's kind of playing me like changing notes, and I'm not doing it.
Wow.
I'm witnessing it and I'm watching it, and it holds you for so long. I'm like, where's this breath coming from? And then you end off and you go, and do it again. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening right now? So that's what I'm talking about on that title.
Was it scary at the time, or was it like, how did it make you feel?
It was kind of intriguing at the time, because I mean, the sound listener in me, I'm digging the sound. But at the same time, the shaman is coming. He comes over and he's, fanning me, and, he's saying, oh, that's like 20 years of therapy happening right now. So I guess I had to get through that moment. But yeah, it was kind of, it was just interesting, because my mouth actually, like, my mouth shaped like a panther. It like actually made my mouth like I can't do it through the microphone, but it made my mouth kind of yeah.
And was this like hours, or how long was it?
Well, most IS sessions last about 6 hours. But it don't feel like 6 hours. It feel like maybe 2 or 3. For me anyway.
Yeah. So has it been overall, like, even after the fact, like as eye-opening an experience as they say it is?
Yeah, man. I was a changed person when I left Hawaii, which is
really?
Yeah, I have to say, man, it is legit, I won't say it's like a fix-all kind of thing, but at the time when I went to do it, I was kind of in like a very, very low place. And a friend of mine told me about it, and he was like, yeah, man, you got to check it out. Read this book first. So I read about it, before I went in, because I was like, man, y'all niggas just like to do drugs, man, and I'm not into it like that. And I got to a point where it just so happened that I ran into a person that was going to Hawaii the next day. And I was like, well, why are you going to Hawaii? He's like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing with this shaman. So the way it comes to you when you need it. So I would tell anybody, like, don't let anybody force you into like doing ayahuasca and nothing like that. You'll know if you want to do it or when you need to do it, because it calls you, in that way. And I know it sounds, bigger than what it is, but it actually is bigger than what it is. But it's so natural. Like, the plants have been here way before we were humans. So it's like you're having a conversation with your great grandmothers.
Yeah, that's deep. Let's get to the track 4. I think it's such another interesting title.
Track 4 is called Bipolar Disorder's Daughter Wears a 3000 Shirt Embroidered. That was just a fun thing. Like, I was just, like, I knew, like, these kind of and I'm not making fun of any kind of diagnoses, but I thought, like, especially as a person, that loves polo, I just thought it was funny, like bipolar, like as the brand Ralph Lauren Polo, like bipolar disorder, like as if like we're so into like this fashion, you know what I mean? So Bipolar's daughter wears a 3000 shirt embroidered, and so it's like this these shirts that I'm making right now. It was kind of like a nod to what I'm talking about, but just being a Ralph Lauren Polo fan, it's just kind of like a funny play on words.
What kind of shirts are you making right now?
Coming soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, it's one thing to talk about your evolution as an artist, but you know, even as a person, you've been through a lot that honestly, I don't know if fans always remember to take into account when we make like these selfish demands, what feel like selfish demands for more music from artists that we love. But you know, in your case, you in the last decade, you lost both your mom and your dad, and more recently your stepdad, who I know you've said was really an anchoring person in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of grief, man, for anybody to hold, especially back to back. Like, how did managing all of that, how has that changed you or impacted you as a person?
Yes, it's a lot, kind of like in the order that it happened, but it's life too, man. Like, I mean, the worst thing about it is you don't expect it. You know, it wasn't the thing that I could prepare for. But yeah, I'm happy to know that, you know, my parents and my stepfather are in their next phase of what's happening, you know. But yeah, at the time, it felt a lot. It was a lot. It was really, really heavy for me. But you get through it and you keep living. They exchange energy with you, so you kind of feel a boost in your back at the same time, as if, you know, when they pass, they give it to you. So I can say death makes you think about living. Death makes you push, you know. But yeah, man, it was a grieving time, but it's a life.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and everybody has to go through it. You know, the unfortunate thing is the older you get, the more funerals you have to go to. You know.
Yeah. I hear that often.
Yeah.
No doubt.
But it's, you know.
Did it make music or just your art and craft feel any less essential or more essential in any kind of way?
No, I wouldn't say that. It just kind of makes you just remember things. It makes you remember the times that you and your mom had, or the times you and your dad had, or, you know, the times that your stepdad told you certain things. So, yeah, it just kind of reiterates what was given to you when they were here, you know?
Yeah.
Another thing about something interesting, I just had a conversation with Guillermo, my flute maker, and he was telling me that there's a responsibility that comes with flute playing. When I first started playing, maybe 2 years after I had my flute, I went back to Guillermo to kind of get a checkup on my flute and, you know, to get it tuned and clean and stuff like that. And he kind of pulls me to the side and he's like, hey, I noticed that you're really into these flutes. I have to tell you, like, not a warning, but I have to tell you that there will come a time when you play and people will cry. And it's happened to me like a few times now. Like, it's like grown men like crying. Like one time I'm in a taxi and this once I get in, I usually start playing and this guy turns around crying. He was like, when you play, he's like, my mother died last night, and when you play, it makes it feel like she's right here in the seat with me.
Wow.
And so, you know, we were having this conversation, me and Guillermo, and he was like, yeah, he was like, I get asked to play at funerals now, or when somebody know they're about to pass, and, you know, the last days, sometimes the family will call me to play. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy, because I was recently asked to play at a funeral and I denied it. And so when Virgil passed, his family asked would I play.
Wow.
At the funeral, and I denied it. But only because I felt like I would be a distraction, or it would be, you know, like this, you know, I don't know. I just felt like it would have taken away from the moment. And I only knew Virgil like through text and a few conversations, so I couldn't pretend like I knew him that well, you know.
Okay.
But I was honored that the family asked me to play at the funeral, but I couldn't. And so when I told Guillermo, he was like, yeah, sometimes you have to look at it now as a responsibility to play. They asked you to play for a reason. So, yeah, I just wanted to lay that out, because when my mom passed, I don't know, I had this urge to play. But I wasn't even playing flute back then. I just wanted to, I think I was more on guitar at that point.
Okay.
And I just didn't. I don't think I could go through with it. But I don't know. I think
So
I think New Orleans has it best. Like,
Yeah.
I think the funeral kind of the way we do funerals, I think is really antiquated and sad.
Yeah.
I think we need to party more, or like
Celebration.
Yeah, I think New Orleans got it.
I got a few more questions, but
Sure.
I want to know if I could get you to just read the rest of the titles, just to get them all in before we get too close to the end. I think we're on number 5. Yeah.
So number 5 is called 93 Till Infinity and Beyonce. So that was more like when I was a youngster, like Souls of Mischief was like one of my favorite groups.
Yeah.
And 93 Till Infinity, everybody remembers that song. And so it was kind of like a fun nod. And, you know, Buzz Lightyear from was a Toy Story. He always say, till infinity and beyond. You know, so it was kind of like 93 Till Infinity and Beyonce. So it was kind of like just this fun thing. I don't know.
Play on words.
Silly, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
And thank you, Beyonce, for letting me use the name. I actually had to clear it. I had to call.
Oh, serious?
And thank Jay. Like I texted him. I was like, hey man, can you ask Beyonce if I know I got this clearance thing coming through for this song, and I explained to him how I used it, you know. And I'm just happy they let me use it. So thank y'all. I really appreciate that.
Wow, that's dope.
So number 6 is called Gandhi, Dalai Lama, Your Lord and Savior J.C., Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy. And so for me, number 6 was I was trying to show an extreme way of opposites, an extreme way of balances, you know, like how people look at things. And I was trying to show both sides of humans. Yeah, that's what that was. And when you hear the song, it kind of sounds that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's a bar for real. And number 7?
Number 7, Ants to You, Gods to Who. And number 7 is just kind of like an examination of scale. Like sometimes, like I look down, like if you're looking at ants, like to them or to us, they're ants. And they're like, oh, look at these little things.
Yeah.
But who's looking up at ants? Like, what are ants looking down at and saying, oh, they're little things? You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of like a play on scale. Like, do they look up at us and be like, what are those gods? Or are they treated like, it's I don't know. It just made me think of like scale.
Yeah.
And then like how we look at the universe, and there's somebody holding the universe in their palm and looking at all of us are like ants. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was just scale, man.
Okay, and the last one?
The last one, number 8, is called Dreams Once Buried Beneath the Dungeon Floor Slowly Sprout into Undying Gardens. And really, man, that was just a shout to like my birthplace and like my training ground and like my friends and my compadres that helped me get me here. Like, there's no way I could be doing none of this without the dungeon. So it was really a nod to the dungeon family for sure. Like, I came out the dungeon.
No doubt. Well, you co-starred in a film. Speaking of small communities, you co-starred in a film directed by Kelly Reichardt last year called Showing Up, and it was about kind of like a small community of artists at this arts college in Oregon. And a lot of the movie, it really focused on, it felt like just the craft of art making, of showing up, and I'm curious, like, did that film at the time when you made it, did it open up anything for you in terms of showing up and finding fulfillment in the work?
Yeah, it opened up a lot for me in a lot of different ways. For one, once I got the role and I was to play a kiln master, the person that burns the ceramics or whatever your sculpture is in a firing kiln, like you burn it in like this oven kind of, which is called a kiln. And so the production company, they were like, hey, we want you to, just so you know what a kiln master does, we want you to hang out with an actual kiln master. So they sent me to meet this kiln master, and I ended up meeting this guy named Tony Marsh that works at Cal State Long Beach. And so I go to Cal State and I hang out with him for a couple of days just to see how do you move, how do you load the kiln, how do you take it out, just to kind of to understand what it was. From that meeting, Tony says, "Hey, have you ever done ceramics at all in real life?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "I draw, but no, I've never done ceramics." So he sends me home with a big block of clay. And I actually went off to do another movie, so that block of clay dried out. Mm-hmm. But I went back because I wanted to know more about ceramics. So I actually sculpt now, and I do ceramic pieces. And you'll see some of that stuff really soon. But just that meeting for that movie, mm-hmm. like it's kind of like life imitating a movie imitating a life.
Yeah,
that happened for me. And also, like in that movie, when I was on the set, I would, in between takes, I'd just play flute in between takes. And so Kelly heard me playing a lot, and it became a part of like the environment of the film. And so she's like, "Hey, do you mind if we record you to put you in the film?" And so yeah, I was out in the yard one day, and they just set up a mic, and everybody was around the crew, and we were all quiet, and they were like, "Just play." And so I was just kind of playing, and they recorded it. And so when you watch that film and you hear flute in it, that was some of my first, I guess, flute film work.
Okay, yeah.
And
I heard.
Also in the film Everything All at Once that came out last year, I think, I did some flute work, and that was actually my first, my first flute work, I guess. And it's funny now because I actually get a lot of calls from like artists, like music artists. They'd be like, "Hey, can you come play flute on my record?" Like,
okay,
kind of more than rap now, which is so funny to me.
It's dope though.
It's funny, man. It's hilarious in a way.
Do you see scoring in your future?
For sure. Yeah. Like when you listen to the album too, you'll hear in ways that, we're gonna score a film. We're definitely gonna score a film, and we've been talking about it a lot. We record all the time. We have so much music. Like there was so much that couldn't make New Blue Sun that are so much dope music, man, that you will hear it really soon. So just stay tuned. We got so much music.
So you see this as like a step in your creative journey, or is it like a nice place to land for a while? Like how are you looking at it?
Like I look at anything, I look at it like this is a day that's happening. This is happening. This is what it is right now. How you should look at anything. I don't know what tomorrow is going to be, but right now, this is where it's at.
Well, Andre, I appreciate you, man. One last question, if I could get it in. Like, you've talked a lot in recent years about fame, and one thing about people who acquire like a certain amount of fame is you don't always necessarily have a lot of control over your legacy or how you remembered, or the parts that people choose to gloss over, or the parts they obsess about forever. But if you could choose, like, how would you summarize like this coming up on this first half century of your life?
I would say now that I have kind of like a time to look back at it, it's been an amazing ride, and I realize now that I've been on a ride. And now it's kind of like it's so much easier now that I know I'm on a ride instead of trying to control a certain thing. And I can say that I've noticed that I think I'm a catalyst kind of artist. And what I mean by that is I think I'm being used in ways to be watched, to be inspiring to people. And to me, that's the best thing ever, man. Like, to inspire someone else to do something else. And I see it now. I see the inspiration in other people. And to me, it's validation of me being here as a human. And I think all humans just want validation. Like, if I got to go through this life, I at least want people to know that I did something, or that I was valuable to somebody. And so I've kind of had time to sit and look back from rap to musicians to the new generation to new artists, that I'm so happy that I was a part of a lineage and a legacy and kind of food for the next generation, because I've noticed that you're only as good as the people that were before you.
That's heavy. What is it that you hope this generation, this hip hop generation takes from this particular project and this moment in your creative art?
Explore, man. Explore. That's what it's about. Like, keep pushing. That's really what, the same way you explore words, you don't have to let it stick to words. Explore whatever you pay attention to what you're paying attention to and go for it. That's really what it is. And like, I couldn't have planned this. Like, I just started paying attention to a thing and just went for it. So you don't have to stay in a certain way. And I think, the youth, they know it now. Like, they got it, man. Like, I'm seeing like that whole like no categories kind of thing, or
yep.
Yeah, we're in a world now where we have so many influences coming from so many different directions that you don't have to be a one thing. I do find it noble and I find it awesome when someone can focus on a one thing. Mm-hmm. But a lot of different practices or bringing in a lot of different things is interesting too. So if it calls you, test it. So I just really want to be inspiring for people and to look at it and be like, yeah, I want to explore.
No doubt. Well, appreciate you, man. And thank you again for the music. Always inspiring, whatever you're doing, the film work, obviously, over the years. Hope you keep that up and looking forward to this soundtrack or scoring work that you might do next.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Man. Yeah. Appreciate it. And I hope people receive this album in the way that they should and that you want them to.
Yeah, my only goal, man, is I just want people to listen to it and just be inspired by the actual movement of how it got here.
Yeah.
And that's it. And also I want to say the volume of what it is. Like, we did give some type of listening instruction on the album, but these are not bangers. So, they're not really made to be played really loud.
Yeah.
It's more about the dynamic of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So play it at low to mid volume.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice. Thank you, bro.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Peace.
All right. Take care now.
Yeah.
That's André 3000 talking about his new instrumental album, New Blue Sun, out and available to hear on November 17th. I'm Rodney Carmichael. It's NPR Music.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. OCI is the platform for database, application development, and AI needs. Train your AI models at twice the speed and half the cost. Take a free test drive at oracle.com/NPR. This message comes from Schwab. When it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices, like full-service wealth management and advice when you need it most. You can also invest on your own and trade on Thinkorswim, Schwab's powerful award-winning trading platforms. Plus, you'll get low costs, transparent pricing, and 24/7 live help. Schwab understands it's your financial journey, and they believe you should have choices in how you invest. Learn more at schwab.com.
Hey, it's Linda Holmes from NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour podcast. I'm one of thousands of NPR network voices coming to you from over 200 local newsrooms across the country. We bring all Americans closer together through free and independent journalism, music, politics, culture, and so much more. The NPR network. What you hear changes everything.